New rules for crypto just passed in the House. Tomorrow, President Trump will sign this into law. However, how long will it take for all of this to become real? Does it happen right away, or do we have to wait another 6 or 12 months? This video has all the answers for me. We will also talk about the good things for Ripple, XRP, and RLUSD. The person who is currently chair of the SEC also said some very interesting things about CBDCs and working with private companies. Does Ripple sound like it? Let's talk about this now. Brad Garlinghouse sends this out as a tweet. A big thank you to all the Republicans who have worked so hard to get this done over the last few years. They were even able to get Democrats to support them, and we had some bills from both parties. When two groups can work together in this country, it's amazing. A lot can be done. This is just one example of how great they are. Of course, a big shout out to Eleanor Tarrant. She writes a lot of good news. If you're not following her, kindly do that. She says it's breaking. I don't use this phrase very often anymore, but I think it fits this time. The House just passed all 3 crypto bills, and the Genius Act will be the first big crypto law signed into law when it gets to President Trump's desk. Because of all the drama and uncertainty in the last few days, Democrats and Republicans voted together much more than most people thought they would. Tuesday, we talked about this. A lot of people didn't think this would happen. I did say that this would get done no matter what. The only thing left to do was figure out how to do it. That's what these people were able to do. Here is a new video from CNBC. Following that, we will talk about how long it will take for these things to become real. Crypto law gets rid of a problem in the House, but this came after a 9-hour vote to set the rules for the argument. On the bills were finally passed. Today I'm going to talk about the possible rules for crypto and what they all mean. Is Adrian Harris the superintendent of the New York Department of Financial Services back in 2022? Harris passed fixed coin rules here in New York. We've talked a lot about this, and I guess the main question now is how important is this bill in the end? What will happen if all of this takes place? There's something I think people don't really get. Well, outside of New York and what we've done at DFS for the past 4 years, there aren't really any rules for crypto or stablecoin in the US right now. It is very important that we have a national system for regulating this technology, especially since the dollar is the world's reserve currency. It will be good for markets and new ideas to have this in place. I think people talk about great acts all the time, but they don't know what they're talking about here. I mean, we've been talking about tokenization on set lately. One example is tokenizing private business stock. Technically, I don't think this bill talks about whether that's allowed or not. No, I don't think so. I think it's really important to tell the difference between crypto assets, tokenization of real-world assets, and safe coins. That's what Genius does, right? We learned a lot from what we did in New York 3 years ago when we set up rules, some of which will need to be written down, like one-on-one reservations. So to make sure that every stable coin that a stable coin maker makes has a dollar, right? It's now 1-to-1 again. With cash or cash equivalents, a customer can exchange that safe coin for cash at the right time. Do you agree with that? Right now, Circle has won the game. They're really the only game. Do you think that this will lead to more than one Circle in the future, or is this a winner-takes-all situation? That question seems very important to me. I do believe that the new national regulatory system makes it easier for people to come in because the rules are more clear about what is expected of them. And it's really hard for these people to accept that Ripple and XRP can help, right? Circle is only being talked about now that it went public. I believe that Ripple and RLUSD will quickly catch up to Circle's funding since Ripple is already working with so many banks. It would be great if they looked into some of that, but I guess we can't always get what we want. Circle, on the other hand, is one of the businesses we control. In New York, they are already subject to it. For 1-to-1 reservations, T+2 redemptions, and public declarations of reserves. Even though Circle already does all of these things, others will now have to do them too. I'm not sure if this is allowed, but would you short, say, all credit card companies, anyone who owns one of these networks, or anyone who does any kind of financial transactions? If stablecoins work the way they're supposed to, that is, you might think that all of these fees would have no effect on the margin. All of the credit cards that go to the head of the Department of Financial Services. You're not talking about her. That is, you mean if you were someone who could. As someone trying to figure out the direction of this, you would think that if this works the way it's meant to, it would take away a lot of room. After that comes the question of who will get that margin. So the promise of stablecoin rate is that it will rebuild the financial infrastructure so that things can move faster, cheaper, and across borders. I won't get investment advice or do anything myself because of this, but that is the promise that this will rebuild the financial infrastructure in a way that's digitalized. You have smart contracts and everything becomes more efficient. Did you know that's the case? I think there's a lot of hope for that, but there's still a long way to go. I think one of your guests earlier this week talked about how we're only in the first inning of the last year. I did watch, of course. What is the most dangerous thing about this? Think to yourself, this other bad thing could happen if the bill gets passed and all of these things happen. What do you worry about? One of the things that the Genius Bill does is let foreign companies bring money into the US without any rules for 3 years. That seems like a very big risk. It makes it harder for US companies that come in through the front door. And I was watching earlier this week when Bob Diamond said, Look, the mature companies want to be regulated by giving this 3-year exemption for foreign issuers is a really big loophole in Genius. Part of the reason for this is that there are 18 months between when the act is passed and when it goes into effect. And then they've added another 18 months so that foreign entities don't have to follow the same rules as companies that do it from the start. That question is significant. It's something that I think a lot of officials and other people have been pointing out as a major flaw in the bill. There is clearly a problem here, but the Republicans are now celebrating their win. So the bill was given, and we worked with him to deliver it here in the House. Tomorrow, President Trump will sign it into law. This is the first of several bills he will introduce that will help make the United States a world leader in digital assets. That makes you wonder, if the whole point was to make the US a crypto technology giant, why would you give foreign companies this? Well, we'll have to look into that a bit more, but let's get started. She said that this would happen 18 months from now. Is that really true? Let's look into this more. So I thought I'd give you a report. Could you give me an idea of how long this will take? Okay, here you go. The stablecoin regulation bill has been passed by both the House and the Senate. It is now on its way to President Trump's desk, where he has promised to sign it. It is said that the White House has planned a signing event for tomorrow, July 18th. In the next 24 hours, the bill should be put into law. The video will be out on Friday morning. I'm going to record it on Thursday afternoon. This is about the Clarity Act. The House passed the bill, which changes the way the internet market works, and it is now on its way to the Senate. In other words, the Clarity Act, which would actually regulate digital assets, still needs to be sent to the Senate. They would have to agree to that before it could go to the president. Right now, the Genius Act is the only thing that is going to the president. So effect right away after signing, most federal laws go into force when the president signs them, unless the law sets a different date. For example, key parts of the Genius Act, like rules and reserve requirements for stablecoin issuers, become law as soon as they are signed. But laws can only be used in real life if federal bodies like the Treasury and regulators write and publish rules for how they should be followed. Take a look at the timeline. As part of the rulemaking process, government agencies must write detailed rules to carry out the Genius Act. Key bodies are told by the law to finish making rules and procedures within a year. It sounds like she said 18 months, not 1 year. So over the next 6 to 12 months, issuers and trade platforms will likely have to start following new rules. That's why everything should happen in the next 6 to 12 months. In 12 months, everything should become law. It would be July 18th, 2026, if it was signed on July 18th, 25. In this case, there is also an interim period while the rules are being made. During this time, parties like stablecoin issuers and exchanges have temporary requirements or a registration period to give them time to get used to the new rules. The timing for the Clarity Act would be very similar in this case. I think it will be between 6 and 12 months before there are real operational standards and enforcement. If jag tror det får adding endo or hardnäro or tunnerid. I did see that the US Treasurer could move this along within 120 days if he wanted to. We will learn more about this over the next few weeks. Here, the head of the SEC talks about CBDCs only play. I think it's best to leave legal tender and the dollar itself about the means of transfer and that kind of thing to innovators. We don't want to end up like China, where the 8 governments can directly raid people's bank accounts. So I think it's best to leave that to banks and financial institutions and whatever comes up in the next few decades in terms of where people put their money and how they transfer it. I mean, the US government is really like, governments aren't good at making technology. Usually, when a new technology shows itself to be better than the old one, they buy companies or their technology from other companies. So I wanted to know which private companies the US government would pick for CBDCs if they had to. I learned a lot from it, but I wanted to make a different film. We should talk about all of this because there's a lot to cover. But I thought it was interesting that the SEC head and chairman came out and said, we'll leave this to private companies and financial institutions. What do you think about rules and regulations? What do you feel today? How does your cryptocurrency account look? I hope you enjoy this news. If you did, please share the movie and like it. You are truly amazing. Thanks for everything you've done. I really, really value your help. Peace.